Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. My name is Serge. Joining me today, I got a Nelly.
Hey.
I got a Wheeler.
Dations.
And on tech, we got a James.
Dations.
Oh,
Team Chaos wins.
the plot thickens. A reminder that everything we do here is brought to you by you, the support of the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Now, at time of recording, we are so close to 100,000 subs on the YouTube channel. And I'm hoping that after our last call to action, we actually cross that threshold and you could say, I already subscribed, I told you so. But I really would love to see 100,000 on the channel. So please subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. And I'll never ask again. Welcome to part 2 of our Foundations set review. For our Canadian Highlander set reviews, our set reviews are not exhaustive. We only talk about the cards that we think are relevant to the format or every Planeswalker, because we always know you need to know your opinion on a Planeswalker, even if it's not good or not. Today, we're going to be covering red, green, gold, one colorless card, and one land. And we're doing the main set as well as Jumpstart. And so that's the card pool, that's the context, that's it. And then Wheeler, start us off.
Bolt Wave. 1 red for a sorcery. Bolt Wave deals 3 damage to each opponent. You may look at this card and think it's Lava Spike number 2.
Correct.
And it kind of is.
It's not arcane, though.
It is not an arcane. It does have a couple of differences. Lava Spike can actually hit Planeswalkers.
Oh, good to know.
This can get around Hexproof or Shroud or something of that sort.
Right, instead of
Or
target.
Protection, yeah. It does some things. Lava Spike's a weird card because it dropped out of favor in a lot of the red decks when there was basically one version of red deck wins and nothing else, right? They kind of said, hey, this doesn't deal with the board. We need to deal with the board. Now we are at a place where red decks have kind of split off into all these little splinter kind of builds where you have the decks that carry on the DNA of like, hey, we need to deal with the board, so we're playing every shock and we're playing like pump spells. You have the ones that go, hey, we need to challenge the board and do so by playing more 3-drops. We're not quite medium red, but we need to play some bigger things, some impactful 3s. And then you have the decks that say, hey, to hell with the board, I'm going to the dome. And they tend to still play Lava Spike. These are the versions of Red Deck wins that play your Kessig Flame Breathers, your Firebrand Archers, basically the cards, the Thermo Alchemists that are mostly not Thermo Alchemists because some of them can also attack. They tend to be more of a prowessy kind of build where Lava Spike, not a super exciting card when you only have one. But when you have redundancy and when you also sculpt the rest of your deck to include additional cards that go to the dome, when you have, that density of going to the dome, it becomes a lot more appealing. Instead of just being, oh, this is a card that makes them go from 20 to 17. You get to say, this is one of the cards that gets to circumvent their board so they go from 20 to 0. So yeah, it seems like it's just it's Lava Spike 2, and sometimes it will be that. But it's a cool talking point for how one of the most iconic decks in the format has evolved over the years to keep up with the changes in Magic the Gathering, with printings of cards like Psychic Frog and a Johnny and all that. Sometimes the answer is just ignore them.
Just dome them.
Just kill them.
Yeah. Just dome them out. Sick.
Chandra Flame Shaper. 5 red for a 6 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Chandra with +2. Add 3 red mana. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Choose one. You may play that card this turn. -1. Create a token that's a copy.
It's a +1.
+1.
Oh my gosh, that is a plus.
It's a +1, yeah.
My eyes did a weird thing. Yeah, okay. +1. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token. And -4. Chandra deals 8 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. I don't want to miss too many words here. This thing costs 7. It doesn't have a cost reduction. And what do you get for your 7 mana? The thing is, not something you didn't already have going on. It'll dig. So, yeah, there's that. There's a flexibility of adding a second hasty attacker. It has the third ability online right away. You can do 8 damage to creatures and planeswalkers.
That's a lot of damage.
And still have, and you split it however you want. And you still have 2 loyalty left over. But I don't like this card. I don't think it's good. I don't know what deck you could possibly convince me it's better than, another card.
There are a couple of 6 mana. There are 3 6 mana. There are 4 6 mana Chandras.
Yeah, but
Two of them are
really good.
The dual deck ones.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Two of them are playable.
Yeah. Uncounterable Chandra that like kills the board is okay.
Yeah, and the Mom Chandra.
The one that makes 3/1.
Yeah. That one I was
the Oath of
playing
the
in
Gatewatch
Time
one.
Walks run. The most recent 6 mana Chandra.
The Oath of the Gatewatch one that Serge is mentioning, I do not think is playable anymore, unfortunately.
That one might have gone, but it was playable.
It was
for a
literally
while.
playing that in your Time Walk deck
no,
last week.
I'm playing Hope's
other
Beacon.
one. Hope's Beacon.
Oh,
yeah.
Hope's Beacon is the one from March the Machine. That one is genuinely good. And the uncounterable emblem, you're going to win the game one, also
We've got a special place in our heart for that one.
kind of reasonable. Like it could show up in a specific kind of metagame and like crush. So in the realm of expensive Chandras that you're like, wow, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We already have a couple.
And they're
this one is just-
they're less mana than this one.
Yeah. This one's wild. Like, not good wild.
All right, next up, Drop Kick Bomber. This is a 3 mana 2/3 Goblin Warrior for 2 and a red. Ancient Tomb mana. Other goblins you control get +1/+1. And red mana, until end of turn, another target goblin you control gains flying, and when this creature deals damage, sacrifice it. When was the last time we got a goblin lord? Like a new, just lord.
Dominaria United.
Within the last year. No, it's 2 years ago? Okay.
2 years?
Yeah, that Sergeant one.
Runevelt Hordemaster.
Yeah. This is cool. I like this goblin. I think it not being red pip is pretty spicy as a way to get it down. Other goblins getting bigger, I think, is cool. Now, please keep in mind, I am not a goblin pilot. I'm not a goblin connoisseur. I am the type of person who sits down across from the goblin player, and I cross my fingers that they don't just kill me on turn 3. So I don't necessarily know how best to evaluate it when they want it, when they don't, because they want their recruiters, they want their matrons, and they want a lord with their Krenko or something shenanigans like that. In particular, the part that I do not know how to evaluate is that activated ability. That second one of you can let a goblin get in and hit you, but then you sacrifice it. And that seems incredible if you have like a pile driver for the finisher or something like that, like to get that last little bit of damage through. Or if you're fighting for the initiative, that seems incredible. But for the most part, on like one of the big goblin draws, no idea. I just see 3 mana Goblin Lord and I'm like, that's probably pretty good.
It's better than Adaptive Automaton, and there are still tournament-winning Goblin decks that play Adaptive Automaton.
Okay, I wasn't sure about this. So I looked at this card and thought, they're getting enough cards now. Maybe this one finally won't make the cut. Because I remember, the early days of Highlander, like, Mac was playing like the Portal 1/1 for 3 that when it attacks your
Goblin General.
Goblin General, and it's so like, okay, clearly
every
single Goblin Lord is in this deck, right? And we had Runeveld Hordemaster last time we were talking about this, and there's been various other really good goblins that have been printed in the last 10 years, obviously, but I wasn't sure if this one still make the cut. But yeah, it's better than Adaptive Automaton.
The nice thing about this is it has no downside.
Sure.
The opportunity cost for this Lord is so free, short of course, like what else are you playing?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, does this replace Bogart Ram Gang or something? Maybe not. I mean, 3 mana 3/3 for haste with Wither.
No, I just hope. I mean, Mac is probably
Mac
on
is still
Ram
playing
Gang.
it because I was facing down one of those on Monday night not too long ago.
I mean, there is a conversation, I guess, to have about the Rakdos goblins, Jund goblins, or mono red. Like,
Sure.
this one, you might play it in mono red because you cut a bunch of some of the Rakdos goblins.
You're cutting to like the lieutenant and stuff like
But
that.
also because it is a single red pip, it's kind of appealing that you could have like a Bayou in play and your Jund goblins that can still play this. I think you're just playing it because it's a Goblin Lord, and also sometimes it just wins the game with this activated ability.
You know what? I think that's great because I love the shout out to Goblin Balloon Brigade, like style goblins can get flying for a red mana. So it's a cool callback. So I'm happy to learn just in this moment that yes, 3 mana 3-mana Goblin Lords are still real.
Yeah, you'll still just die. It's goblins.
All right, Wheeler.
Electro Duplicate. 2 and a red for a sorcery that says create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste. And at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token. Flashback for 2 red. There's a combo that uses Dual Caster Mage
Okay.
and a Twin Flame variant. This is a Twin Flame Heat Shimmer variant, whatever
Get your
you
Neoforms out.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you want to call it. It's seen a little play here and there, especially with certain changes of like Time Walk being 6 points, Birthing Pod being 0 points. Just kind of a weirder way to approach some of the pod decks or the Kiki pod decks is just, what if we have more combos? Like, how do we keep up with like Seeker Walk? It's like, well, we just have more combos.
Just try
than
and
they
win
do.
sooner, right?
Yeah, this isn't going to be like taking over your local scene or anything, but it's a card that fits into a shell that already has that already wants this type of effect, but also just, I don't know, making a copy of your recruiter if you really need to, and then having the flashback as like additional value. It's kind of spicy.
Do you like this as a mid-range card in like red-based initiative decks?
I mean,
right? Like Mardu Initiative, does this do enough? Or
it kind of has like a wacky saw in half style.
that's
card,
kind of what I was thinking, right?
but without the like reactive part of it.
I think you want to put those slots into recommissions, right? Like
Sure.
a helping hand kind of card, because if you're in the situation that you already have your creature that gave you the initiative still in play, probably you can just get more value out of it
You mean
by
like
turning it sideways, right?
you mean like, but recommission and helping hand only get 3 or less, which is exactly
Right.
White Plume.
Okay.
But like animate deads, like
Yeah.
that
sure.
vibe of card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after Cloud Shift, right? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're like, is this? I
I
don't
do love Saw in Half, though.
Oh God, Sonaf. All right, Ellie.
Let's talk about Frontline Heroism. This card is from the Jumpstart set. It's 2 and a red for enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste. Sorry, a 1/1 red soldier with haste. Whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single creature you control, create a 1/1 red soldier with haste, then copy that spell. The copy targets that token. So pretty big get for exactly red-white heroic. We talked about this deck on the
the
previous
last episode,
podcast
yeah.
when we were talking about white cards. The first card we talked about got +1/+1 counters when it was targeted. So this card, certainly a slam dunk, I think, in any deck that's looking to capitalize on heroic triggers and willing to play into a bit of the mid game. Like, this is a 3-mana make a 1/1. So if your deck is more trying to set up like an infect sort of kill through the heroic cards, and then maybe this won't really fit into the plan, but as long as you're trying to like play a medium length game of Magic and capitalize on like big heroic triggers, I think you want to include this in your deck.
Everyone is talking about Nadu, and no one is talking about Feather.
Right.
Well,
There's a reason for
there
that.
may be a reason for that.
What?
Yeah.
I like this card.
Okay.
I don't know if it's good, but I like it. You know?
My brain had a moment where I'm like, oh, this is just Goblin Rabble Master for decks with giant growth.
Kinda.
It just kind of
Yeah.
Well, your giant
Well,
growths are
the
now
tricky-
also a creature.
The tricky
right?
thing is, this wants you to play the giant growth pre-combat.
Sure.
Is the tricky thing, right? Which you don't really want to do to maximize the value because, of course, Magic players love to wait for value.
But this way you get a second giant
I
growth
know.
creature with haste, so
I
it's
know.
kind of worth, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I need to put together this heroic deck.
I would say that this actually changes. This lets you be proactive with your first pump spell, in a way.
But not the
Right?
second one.
Well, the second you can be a little reactive, right?
Yeah.
Like you can, because you're just like, well, ball's in my court. Here's a 4/4 with haste. Like after I giant growth my thing, and they're like, well, I have to now deal with this one, but I'm also taking 4, and the token doesn't go away. That's the
You
cool
don't
part
sacrifice
of
that
this.
token. And also, there's no line about only the first spell. I know that
Yeah.
you're talking about like sequencing and stuff, but it's worth noting, yeah, if you as many times as you want to pump your creatures, you get another
Yeah.
pumped creature.
Yeah. God, I actually need to make this deck now. I'm just like, I could just be playing 4th Aerlingus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I love red white. All right, time to make a.
Yeah, like the ceiling on this card is pretty wild, you know.
Would you say that it's Wild Defiance? Is it similar to the card
It's
Wild
kind of
Defiance?
similar.
I just love that of all of the cards that would finally make me play it, it's not a good heroic card. It's frontline heroism that's the tipping point. Come on, Serge.
This card's dope.
This is a good heroic
all
card, I
right,
think.
all right.
It's like a heroic lord.
It's got the word hero in it.
It does.
Yeah.
And the word aunt.
It's,
all right.
It's a lord for your spells.
Maybe the next card will convince me. General Crete, the Bolt Bringer. This is also from Jumpstart. 3 mana 2/2 legendary goblin soldier for 2 and a red. Whenever one or more goblins you control attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. Whenever a creature you control enters, General deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, thank God. It's not a heroic card. This didn't make the difference. But this is a pretty cool goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a version of the goblin deck, actually a lot of versions of the goblin deck, that just want to put as many bodies onto the battlefield as possible and then slam any number of lords and just kill you. And this does a tremendous job with this. And also, this goblin with Krenko is just so funny because you're probably dead to Krenko anyways. But this kills you with Krenko through like moat or whatever.
Reach is pretty huge.
Yeah. Just that last little bit of finish damage if they have a lifelink creature and you can't actually attack or something gets in the way that makes it just a little bit tricky. Just continue to go wide, develop your board, and incidentally kill is phenomenal. Now, the one thing I don't know is what the density of 3-drops looks like in a goblin deck these days. That would be the one thing you're fighting over is, this is a 3 mana 2/2 and
It's high.
It's high, yeah. All the lords are 3 basically, except for that 2/1.
So this one is cool. So I'm just trying to figure out the exact moment when it lands. It doesn't have to attack.
No.
So you still get at least 1 goblin and a damage trigger from that. The favorite play pattern is like play it and then swing with somebody else, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, worth noting. It doesn't deal damage. It's when another creature you control enters, but as you pointed out already,
it makes the
basically,
token if somebody else attacks, right? Like the
Yeah,
chances of this
exactly.
coming down on an empty board and for a
Yeah.
goblin deck is like
Yeah.
nil.
it makes one. Yeah, it makes 1 token for each attack step, basically, but it deals
Goblin
1 damage
Rabblemaster.
for each creature entering. Yeah, so all of your other goblins, like if you mentioned Krenko, I think you meant the 4 mana one, but also like the 3 mana one that makes more every turn. Like every single token you have enters is going to deal a damage.
Yep. Little Perforos.
Yeah, Perforos vibes.
Some
Absolutely.
impact
Tremors. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wheeler.
On to another card from the Jumpstart set. We have Gornog the Red Reaper. 2 and a red
This
for
one.
a 2/3 legendary creature, Minotaur Warrior with haste. Cowards can't block warriors.
Classic.
Whenever 1 or more warriors you control attack a player, target creature that player controls becomes a coward.
Period.
And
Period.
attacking warriors you control get +X/+0, where X is the number of cowards your opponents control. This card slaps.
Yeah.
Like if they have a creature, this is attacking as a 3/3 haste for 3 with Ancient 2 mana. Medium red or like Gruul monsters, for instance, are 2 decks that don't care about Caracas as much just because they've got potentially in their points list Strip, Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, Wasteland, like they're
Sundering Eruption.
Sundering Eruption. They got a price of progress. They don't care. They're killing you dead, or they're just doing it ahead of schedule off of Mana Dorks or Ancient 2 mana or whatever. They also tend to play a lot of incidental warriors. So many that I can't even think of them. They're just read a card from one of these decks once, and you're like, oh, that's a warrior.
Yeah, Inti and
Why?
Lelia are probably both warriors.
Yeah, they're both
play.
warriors.
Yeah, seems like they would be.
Yeah, this card gets big. It buffs all of like that second one isn't a triggered ability; it's a static ability. So there's no weirdo shenanigans where like this,
Like if
has
you make
to
it a
attack.
warrior,
Or whatever.
when do you get the timing? Do you get it on the first attack? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty dope. I like this card a lot. It's just kind of an idiot that hits you
Yep.
for a lot, but like on Crop Crasher,
I was about to make that comparison.
which is also just a warrior, by the way. Yeah, just not blocking is the best thing for these decks. Like that just, it makes it so miserable for trying to deal with the onslaught of pressure from these
I
lists.
actually wonder if this is supposed to be like on Crop Crasher in lore, like legendary version, because it's also a Minotaur, right? I don't know if we can tell if there's anything
I
here
believe-
that says Amonkhet, about it. but-
Yeah, I think that might be Snow. So I'm going to say
Okay, maybe not.
that is, yeah.
It does have the same stats and CMC as Hurloon Minotaur.
It is a Hurloon Minotaur.
So maybe it's supposed to be like more of a Hurloon Minotaur throwback.
Oh,
but
God, there.
yeah, great.
I'm so
card.
glad you mentioned on Crop Crasher. Like not having to exert to get that ability and just shutting down a creature is wild. All right, Nelly.
Let's talk about Ivora, Insatiable Air. 1 and a red for a 1/1 legendary vampire warrior with trample. And when this enters and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. And whenever you discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Ivora. So right away, we were talking about Inti and Lelia, which are like the two sort of like aggro red creatures I'm used to facing down so often. This one really likes Inti, as well as, Faithless Looting. It says a card. So I'm pretty sure if you discard 2 cards at the same time, you'll get 2 +1/+1 counters, because it doesn't say 1 or more cards. So that's exciting. Every card that you discard makes this thing big. Also just a little protection from good old 0 points Mind Twist if you are getting wrecked. But you have Ivora in play, at least she's getting bigger.
Oh, the value.
That's
Discard 5, don't care. No.
And hey, I just mentioned like the bottom, like least exciting thing about what's great about this card. It's only 2 mana. It's only 1 more mana than the card we played just to dome them for 1 and get a blood token. The
Epicure.
the Epicure
Oh,
of
man.
Blood, the Vampire Gourmand or whatever. Do you remember what it's called? in German?
Voldaren Epicure.
Voldaren Epicure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like it a lot.
So
Go ahead.
question for the room.
Yeah.
Because vampires have, as a kindred family, have typically existed in 3 colors, white, black, and red. And in original Innistrad, I feel they really got pushed in red and black. And then as far as our meta has become concerned, vampires is like a black-white deck. We don't really see a lot of the red, even like a splash or anything like that. And I'm curious if Ivora sort of makes that change into some of those, because like what red gets you is one of the best like sliff creatures ever, the Falconwrath Heir, I think is what it's named, the one
Stromkirk Noble?
Stromkirk Noble, pardon me. That I mean maybe I just remember that because of playing in standard and around that environment, because that card was a house.
There's 1 or 2 lords you can play as well, right?
Well, you get access to like the Olivia Voldarens, the like flying 4/4 or the 3/1 with haste and like sack outlet. Like it does some really cool stuff. And there's also the 3 mana 3/3 first strike
Florian.
Yeah, like there's some what red doesn't get you access to. It doesn't get you access to lords, but it gets you access to like some really powerful mid-range cards that I don't know if it needs. I'm curious about that.
I would like to suggest something a little different from vampires. Just Rakdos.
Oh,
Like
right.
Rakdos
Yeah.
mid-range
Yep.
is a deck that has popped up in other formats off the back of a lot of powerful cards that we have seen printed in the past couple of years, right? Your Blood Tithe Harvester, your Fable the Mirror Breaker, Graveyard Trespasser,
Shieldred, Orcish
all
Bowmaster.
Epicure, even
yeah.
sometimes
Yeah,
some of those
yeah.
decks are playing Epicure.
all this crap, right? And there's this theme of like card advantage, not just from 2-for-1ing your opponent, but from not even card advantage,
Like
but card
Madness and
flow,
Exile. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot of discard. Like when you talk about the Inti Lelia, right? The benefit of that is you discard to the Inti, which lets you exile a thing. You exile a thing, and then Lelia gets bigger. Like it's the neck bone is connected to the shoulder bone kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so now that we talked about the identity of Rakdos quite a bit on this podcast.
Yep.
I think we've seen what it looks like, and getting cards like Ivora is exactly what it wants. It's like, okay, I get you. You got your theme. Your card quality's high. now sell me on some kind of like synergy. And cards like this do that because it says, okay, I'll show you synergy. Here's a 2-drop with synergy that creates the blood tokens. Like I'm very excited to try. Maybe that deck exists and is a vampires deck, but is more of like a mid-range list that just happens to be like, oh, Sorin Vein Ripper, oopsie doopsie. But yeah, I'm not going to spoil my thoughts on this card and whether or not it is my favorite card of the set. It is.
Really?
Yeah. I'm so stoked for this card for what it... And not just the Rakdos too, right? Like, we recorded the North 100 where I played Check Pile with the discard theme of like Party Thrasher and Veronica from Fallout. Like, yeah. This card's dope. ETB or attack and it has trample. Doesn't matter how you discard. This thing's like a Tarmogoyf. Also, I really like blood tokens.
That's so fun. I'm so low on blood tokens.
Yeah, you and Omer, huh?
All right.
It's like half of Faithless looting that was like free from another card.
Mm-hmm.
It does look bad against Orcish Bowmasters, but only if they have it right away.
Yeah.
Next up, Kellen, Planar Trailblazer. This is a 1-mana 2/1 done. Good enough.
Great.
Legendary creature, Human Fairy Scout, with 2 activated abilities. The first activated ability, 1 in red. If Kellen is a scout, it becomes a Human Fairy Detective and gains... Whenever Kellen deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Then, second activated ability, 2 in a red. If Kellen is a detective, it becomes a 3/2 Human Fairy Rogue and gains double strike. Does it also lose the first ability?
No.
But it does lose the first creature type, right? It's like the creature type.
So it becomes a Human Fairy Detective?
If it's a scout, it is now a Human Fairy Detective and gains this ability. Yeah. And then if it's a detective, it becomes a Human Fairy and gains double strike. It does not lose the ability. It just gains. Also, I don't know why you're talking about all of that. None of that's written on this card. This is just a 1-mana 2/1.
This is a red 2/1 for 1
with
red.
no downside.
All right. So I hate to tell this to you, red deck wins boomers. You can finally get rid of your Jackal Pup.
And yet somehow we got Norin in the last set. We get this one here. I'm going to still see some jackass winning an event with Tattermunge Maniac.
Man,
yeah.
I can't. I'm going to throw my buddy Shane.
You can pitch it to Force of Vigor.
No, oh my God. My buddy Shane showed up at Monday night the other day. And I can't remember if he was playing Tattermunge and a Jackal Pup or just one of the two.
You got to play Rakdos Cackler because if they steal it, it can't block.
Yeah, like it's just. There you go. All right. And just red deck wins?
Well,
maybe red, white humans.
Red, white humans.
It is a human.
It doesn't stop being a human ever. And
yeah.
That deck likes cheap cards.
I mean, the downside to this is obviously investing 6 mana into this card and getting a bounce to Krakus, but there's a lot of ways to kill it. But you're playing an aggressive threat on 1. Man, there's so many good 1-drops these days.
Yeah.
This card's kind of like fair Ragavan if you want to like slag it in that regards, but it's like, hey, you just compared the card to Ragavan, right?
Well, yeah, and you know how many legendary 2-mana 2/1s or 1-mana 2/1s you want to play?
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Seer Slicer Goblin. That's like a spear. Well, it's more of a halberd. Seer Slicer Goblin. 1 in red for 2/1 Goblin Warrior. With Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, you create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. This is a 2-drop goblin that makes goblins when you attack with your goblins.
Whoa, didn't see that last word coming.
One of the only downsides for goblins, other than the existence of Fury and Orcish Bowmasters and Ocelot Pride, is their 2-drops kind of stunk. It's just like, we've got Goblin Pile Driver, we got Goblin Recruiter, Ember Hauler, and people are like, okay, and you're like, Bushwhacker kicked. It's just,
pay the Serge on that other Bushwhacker.
But it's been getting a lot better, like Runeveld Hordemaster, right? The new Lord. And
Snoop.
There's the Snoop. Yeah, it actually has a good set of 2-drops. And
It
this
used to
is
go 1-1-1-3, right?
Yeah. And this is like an addition to that. Is that now it's a goblin that makes more goblins, and it's a 2-drop. Doesn't matter if it's an X one. We're still losing to Fury and Orcish Bowmasters. Doesn't matter. You might not have it. I'm still winning the event.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll lose this game to Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic role player here.
Nelly.
Twin Flame Tyrant. 3 red for a 3/5 dragon with flying, and if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead. All right. This is a cool big dragon with 2 heads, and I'm going to need Wheeler to explain to me why it's on the list. It seems like a fantastic card for Commander.
So this card has started seeing niche play in Modern and Pioneer.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically in Fable the Mirror Breaker decks.
Okay.
Or like decks that can accelerate a little bit.
Yeah, if you have a Fabled Mirror Breaker token, it attacks for 12, right?
I know what you're thinking. It looks terrible. But it not well with the
We sort of described a win more scenario
with
too.
with
but-
the Fable,
Right.
it's not attacking for 12. You make a copy and you're hitting them for 24.
Okay, sure. I was imagining this one can't attack you
Yeah.
because you did like the play pattern is
Right.
you have a Fable and then the turn the
You get the
Fable
treasure
untaps.
token acceleration,
You,
right?
You've got 6 mana. You play this and then you swing at them with the Fable
Yeah.
token. But maybe if this can attack too, it's lethal. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker for 5-mana dragons. Played a lot of them back in the day.
Yep.
Sure.
But this is it does have an ability that can just kill people the turn you play it, right?
yeah.
Like it,
Depending
and
on
it
your attack is, for sure.
yeah, depending on what your board presence is. The fact that it doesn't have the weird, because like a lot of this style of effect has like if non-combat damage you control
Sure.
is dealt, or all
Like
combat
Onar or
damage.
whatever that god's name is. Odar. Onger?
O'Hare.
O'Hare.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
That was like trying
O'Hare,
Thank you.
Axonil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there are cards that have similar-ish abilities, but they're all very particular about where they show up. Torbrand too, another like card that was really dominant for the red decks back in the day, and like in Canlander, red decks would even go up to 4 to play it, but Caracas is Caracas, and red decks have evolved over the
Also,
years.
red for Torbrand.
Yeah, it was a little awkward when you drew your like off-color Mox plus Mishra's Factory.
Yeah.
You're like, ugh.
I guess in medium red, it's like this thing is 2 4/4 hastes. You just have to already have 2 4/4s on the board when you play it.
Maybe.
You know?
I mean,
like the upside is pretty huge.
yeah, like on curve, this can just still kill people. Maybe I fell victim to like the same thing old people do on Facebook, where I just like saw somebody dying to this. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, that's just one time. It could, it's whatever. Then I saw another screenshot of somebody dying to this, and I'm like, oh my God, it could happen to me. I need to warn people. They may die to Twin Flame Tyrant.
I mean, I guess it makes me the fact this is on the list makes me want to ask, like, is there a version of medium red going around that just jams Furnace
dragons?
of Wrath? Like,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I thought you were going to go a completely different route.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just the diverging path. Wheeler's like, yes.
I was like,
and
oh
the
yeah,
last
I'm
word.
sleeving up my Cavern of Souls. I'm going to name Dragon.
Look, I know we're not playing this for the 5 mana 3/5 flying body that doesn't have haste.
Hey,
So
5
let's
mana,
talk about the other half.
5
right?
mana 6/5. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And also speak for yourself. I'm playing. Yeah,
What do you mean not for the body? Look at this
I
thing.
do
Yeah.
think that there is likely a build of medium red that is harder on the dragons that
Okay.
can like have some play, right? Your points are like Soul Ring, Ancient Tomb, Mana Crypt, and you just get to play a dragon. You play Seething Song, like you're like turbo high
Dragon
roll.
Storm? No.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
the only so I recently built a medium red deck for another Highlander format, and the only dragon synergy card that I played was the War of the Spark Sarkon. But like there were a few different because that card actually cares about how many dragons you have. It's like 5 mana Planeswalker,
Yeah,
-3
yeah.
to make a 4/4, or a plus to make your Planeswalkers attack with haste.
Yeah.
And then if they attack you, your dragons deal damage to them.
Yeah.
But like there are a few like dragon kindred cards that are like kind of exciting, so watch out.
You might die to this card. It's a mythic.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
5, you'll lose to this card if they untap with it.
All right.
let's move on to green. Our first card is Dionys, Elvish Archdruid. This is from the Jumpstart product.
Yep.
4 mana, 3/3 legendary elf druid for 3 and a green. Elves you control have. Whenever this creature becomes tapped during your turn, untap it and put a +1/+1 counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. So we have that sort of like exploding brain meme where the first one you're like, elves big. And on the other one you have, oh my god, that's so much mana. Oh my god, that's so much mana. And then the third level from that, you're like +1/+1 counters. You're like, Soul Cauldron. Oh! Because shout out to an episode of North 100 Showdown that just went down, which was Wheeler on green-black elves with Soul Cauldron just doing some absolutely beautiful and or disgusting things.
Nice.
And yeah, so this is a mid-range card. This is a combo card. This is a mid-range combo card, right? Like
I'm in the mid-range store.
yeah, exactly.
I don't see you, dog.
It is a 4 mana 3/3 legend. There is downside, but also like you're gonna get so much value out of this. Even if you play it and they go to immediately kill it, you can just tap all of your elves to make mana.
Oh no, I need to tap my Elvish Archdruid and use a third of the mana to cast this card.
Yeah. This is such a cool card.
Most of the 4-drops we've been trying to talk about on these podcasts aren't also a dark ritual.
Yeah. All right, Wheeler.
My next card, Go Forth from the Jumpstart Fraud Ruck. 1 green for an instant that says, choose one. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle, or target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I'm a sucker for a Lay of the Land, and I'm a sucker for a Bump Spell, because 2 decks that I like to play that I don't play nearly enough of, where I used to play, is the Rug Blitz deck, the Temir Blitz, where you want a bunch of pump spells, but you're also playing like 29 to 30 lands. We'll take advantage of both these sides. Just, hey, if it's a pump spell that you need, you got a pump spell here. Hey, if you need to hit a land, you can hit a land. And Infect. Love Infect. Hasn't gotten any new creatures. Probably not going to play Infect until we get a new set with more of those.
Return to Phyrexia.
I mean, they printed Toxic, and it was just
close. Hey, there's that one good one. The one mana.
The Venerated Rot. Yeah, the Rot Priest is okay.
That is the new card we got in.
Yeah,
in
the black one's like fine. It's like a 1/1 Toxic Death Touch.
Every time you say toxic, I think Britney Spears. Did you know that?
Still happens.
You don't have to tell me. Dude. You don't have to tell me. Yeah, it's cheap, cute role player that has game in like exactly 2 decks. Yeah, maybe the like Gruul Blitz or Naya Heroic, whatever kind of deck you want to like build it as.
Naya Heroic.
I mean, yeah, sure, why not? Finds a basic.
I wonder if there's like, it might eventually matter in the build of Charbelcher, because like that deck is pretty set right now in terms of like not having to play too many lands because of all the transforming or the dual face ones. But like maybe there'll be
I honestly thought he was going to say Charbelcher at first too.
I haven't
but
played.
It's just a Taiga. There's no basic forest in Charbelcher.
No, we played one.
You can do a version. Yeah.
Sorry.
In my 7-land Belcher list, I played 1 basic land, but that deck did just want every Lay of the Land. The problem is that now we just have too many Lay of the Lands.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And
now.
so I just would rather play the one that is like, hey, you either get Lay of the Land or you get Diabolic Tutor. I would rather go with the Tutor.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Nelly.
Let's talk about Loot Exuberant Explorer. For 2 and a green, you get a 1/4 legendary Beast Noble with you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And 4 green, so 6 mana, and tap Loot. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Okay, so this is an expensive ability that does require tapping Loot, so you'll want to be able to untap with Loot in order to get value out of that. It's also just a 1/4 blocker with a copy of Exploration strapped to it. So if you're playing lands, I would recommend trying this card out. because it's a horn turtle that will stuff your opponent's Ragavan from attacking into you unless they have Caracas.
I think if you're still playing Azusa, maybe you finally replace Azusa with this. She's so vulnerable.
She's so bad.
Only two
I want her
toughness.
to be good. But
I know,
she's so-
I know. But this, it's got a lot in common. It's got a lot in common with Azusa, except it actually can participate in the board.
Well,
and
yeah.
then later on might do something.
Yeah, if you're taking advantage of a second land play for a turn, you know that 6 mana is not impossible. That doesn't say sorcery. Like if you need to keep your mana open to cast removal spells,
This can loop.
Yeah,
Like this is going to sound like I'm just pulling cards out of my ass, but they're having played against lands lists with all these cards in it.
sure.
Like creating a loop where you have like the repeatable, like you have your Crucible, you have infinite land drops, whatever. Like what are we doing with it? Is using Need for Speed and Caracas.
Okay.
So Need for Speed, the 1-mana enchantment, sack a land, give a thing haste. Caracas obviously bouncing it. So you activate it, Caracas your thing, sack the
your
lands,
Caracas, replay the
replay it.
Caracas,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it does let you just win the game if you have
You'll
either
hit
Need
every
for Speed.
creature in your deck. Yeah.
Yeah, Need for Speed or Arena of Glory or I don't know, a bunch of things which can be relevant. This again sounds really stupid. Can be relevant in a world where maybe you can't draw your deck with Waterlog Grove because of like I don't know, a Shieldred or a Narset in play, Hull Breacher, whatever.
You know a bad card? I mean, you know a bad card that I played in lands for way too long that I think this actually legitimately replaces?
Azusa?
Not Azusa. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's a 3-mana 5/5.
Oh, Wayward Swordtooth.
Wayward Swordtooth. That was a favorite of mine, like a pet card in that deck, because I was like, oh, it's just an exploration until it becomes a 5/5, and you're like, Serge, man, I don't know.
Don't
This
be
one
too.
doesn't. Go ahead.
Don't be too hard on yourself. You're going to talk about other cards I was playing, man. You're like, at least it's not the gazelle. It's not the antelope. Is that what you're going to say?
Don't be too hard on yourself, man. Your lands list has plenty of bad cards in it still.
What are you talking about? My grandfather's lands list has no bad cards.
Anyways, retreat to Coral Helm.
Hey.
Oh, don't you get on.
All right, next up, it's me, and I'm going to talk about the Mossborn Hydra. You couldn't have a core set adjacent project, set, unless you had one big dumb Hydra. It's like you need a big dumb dragon and a big dumb Hydra and a big dumb spider. And a big dumb angel, right? You need
And
one
a
of each.
Sphinx.
Sure.
And a Sphinx and a demon.
Or Jin.
Or
Yep,
Jin.
They're all
right.
in there.
Anyways, this is the Hydra. 3 mana 0/0 elemental Hydra for 2 and a green, has trample. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature. It's extremely straightforward. This is the sort of thing that is quickly going to get out of hand. It can also get dealt with early and nothing will happen. Pick your poison. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they trade a card for it. They traded a card for it. Otherwise,
Are you going to play this over George?
you're gonna kill it. It's a lot like George, except landfall.
Oh, Mana George?
Mana George.
I don't even know if I'm playing Mana George encounters anymore.
That's what I was going to say, though, right? Because like this is there's a long tradition of growth threats at 3 mana in specifically green and blue, right? And maybe this is like my boomer brain talking of what was the blue one? Whenever you untapped something, you put a plus
Wake Thrasher?
Wake
It's
Thrasher.
not a counter, though. It's just
Oh,
+1/+1.
that's just until end of turn. Yeah, all right, but. I don't know. Just thinking about that, it's like I don't even know if the +1/+1 counter decks need those. This is a fun one though. Like it can get out of hand.
This
But
is unbelievable. It's like you forgot when I 2-0'd both of you with Landfall aggro. Wait, did I kill you with Landfall?
I don't know if we've had that match.
I killed you with Landfall aggro.
You might
I
have
had
killed
a landfall mirror and I won.
That doesn't sound right.
This card's I honestly think this card's like very good because sure it's 3 mana and it starts off as a 1/1. But then in all the situations where they don't kill it, it's not like other growth threats where you like chip them up. Like you don't like add little stacks and then eventually hit them. This is more like a combo card.
So one fetch land makes us
What's making you laugh?
one.
I'm not like other growth threats.
So one fetch land makes us a 4/4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, well, the thing is, you just need to make 4 land plays for a lethal attack, right? You make a land play for a 2/2. You make a land play for a 4/4. You make a land play for an 8/8.
Okay,
and then you
never
make
mind,
a
I
land
take it
play
back.
for a 16/16
I didn't know.
trample.
I didn't know how math worked. It's like, I don't know, exponential growth and compound interest, man. Like,
Mind if I hit you with a hell of a segue that'll tie this conversation together?
hit me.
So the next card is called Scythe Cat Cub.
This isn't a segue. This is the next card.
Well, no,
fine.
trust me, these two cards are
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scythe Cat Cub from Jumpstart. One in a
This card's
green
cracked.
for a 2/2 cat with trample and landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, double the number of 1/1 counters on that creature instead.
Is this a reference to like the first ever? It wasn't even called Landfall at the time. Like, wasn't one of the first, like, whenever land comes into play, it was Scythe Cat or something?
Well, there was Scythe Tiger from original Zendikar that had to deal with lands, and then they made Scythe Cat Leopard, which is a 1-mana 1/1 landfall gets +1/+1.
Oh, so maybe it's not a direct nod, but it's definitely within that family.
It's a Zendikar
This is a
cat.
Zendikar cat for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
this one is cracked. I like this better than
Yes.
the Hydra, but the Hydra I think is also very good.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that they're like both of these cards are cheap-ish green creatures that deal with 1/1 counters and lands. And I mean, together they're busted. But also worth mentioning that they join Bristly Bill
Yeah.
Right.
and Glyph Elemental.
Yeah.
Cards that we have received this year that are very powerful, like +1/+1 counter cards that also deal with lands. And maybe there's a world where the counters list kind of has this lands sub theme. Maybe not as hard as my
Oh.
yeah, not as hard as my Step Links deck, but like maybe playing these cards with like Knight of the Reliquary, having the crop
Oh
rotation
my
for like
God.
Sajiri
Sorry.
Step or something. Like I don't know.
Bringing the Sajiri step back.
I think that this card is a bit better in just like a general sense than the Hydra is.
Yes.
But I wanted to tie them together because well, they're the same card.
Yeah.
It's just one of them is
Can we
not
talk about how
standing
they
legal.
both have trample, which
Yeah.
is so huge? Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, for the counters deck, one of the big issues is like, great,
Yeah,
you
cool,
have
18/18. Yeah.
I chump block. I think that literally
Like a goat
happened
token, right?
in one
Yeah.
of our matches where I'm like, all right, I'll attack you with this 24/24 creature, and you're like, I'll block with this insect token.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. You just really need ways to push through damage and any threat with trample. Like maybe I say maybe we're under valuing the Hydra, but I think we're all on board with the Hydra.
I think
Yeah.
the Hydra's
Yeah,
great, to be
yeah.
clear.
I'm back. I'm back.
I think the
'cause
Hydra is a
I
good
think
card.
it's okay in general, but then once you're like, oh right, trample.
Yeah.
I need trample. I don't have it.
So, I mean, I'm immediately comparing it now to Landfall Aggro All-Star, the Mammoth.
Oh,
Oh,
Kazandu.
The
thing with
Kazandu
the land
Mammoth.
on the
Yeah, it's got the
backside.
land on the backside. It gets +2/+2.
Forgot about that
for
card.
each
We used to
land.
play that a lot.
Like that card just ends games, and then suddenly this Hydra is like, here, hold this. They're already dead, right? Like,
MH3 really put the nail in that thing's coffin because the land always comes in tapped, right?
Yeah, I mean that card's still probably. I think that this is a larger conversation to have. I think MH3 may have poisoned people's brains, and that like, nah, you should just still play the stupid mammoth. And
yeah, get your
deck or
countryside
whatever.
crusher back in there. You live
Well,
your best
okay,
life.
no, see, now we're going back to that Archmage of Runes conversation.
But yeah, both these trample, landfall, +1/+1 counter creatures, I think are very good.
Yeah.
This one's better in the dream scenario where you only have fetch lands, and the Mossborn Hydra is better in the like, okay, not everything is perfect, and I just need to get through with this one creature.
I would. This one's so good. I'd put it in so many other decks.
Sure. Yeah,
Like-
that's fair.
I don't know.
I'm more into playing this one just because it's a 2-drop.
Yes. Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, but the Hydra like gets out of hand.
Yeah.
Very, and
The Hydra's a build around. The Scythe Cat is good enough to be like
We-
in a lot of decks.
we have skipped over the fact that both these cards double the counters, and it doesn't matter how those counters get on the card, and our
Yep.
deck is built around putting counters on creatures.
Yep.
So like, the Hydra of like goes to 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, etc. But like, I got a Luminarch Aspirant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if we go 3, 6, 12?
80?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
3, 6, 12, 80.
That's how math
That's how
works.
math works.
That's that Little John song, right?
All right. So we like both those creatures, but we can move on now.
Go, Nelly,
to
yeah.
Talk about Sutina, Speaker of the Tajuru.
Nope.
No, Spinner of Souls. Sorry,
yeah.
that one was highlighted.
This is
Spoiler.
A card.
Spoiler. We're going to talk about Sutina after we talk about this incredible spider. Sorry, that's my bad, James, not yours. 2 and a green for a 4/3 Spider Spirit with reach, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So we get, I think it's like an Evolutionary Leap activation, pretty much the same templating as that card.
Yeah.
Every time one of your other non-token creatures dies, and at minimum, we get a 4/3 reach for 3 mana, with 2 of it being generic requirements. So if you are still jamming Ancient Tomb at one point or any of the other ways that you accelerate, this can come down early. I like this card because it blocks super well, the stats are okay, and in any of the kind of fun recent like activity that people have been doing with the Nightmare enchantment,
Nightmare?
Chthonian Nightmare, or if you're playing Recurring Nightmare, or if you're
Oh, we
playing
looping.
Aristocrats, you can get a bunch of value as soon as this comes down. So instead of like an ETB, it does have an ability that's available right away and gets you value.
I'm going to be real with you really quick. I definitely thought this spider only cared when it died.
Oh.
It got to replace itself.
No,
not
actually,
all of the other creatures.
When it dies, it just dies, and it is
it
dead to
also
lightning
says
bolt.
another, yeah.
It doesn't get you anything
It's
when
the
it dies.
exact opposite of what I thought it did.
Right, fair enough. Well, reading the card,
I
occasionally
don't
explains the
read
card.
cards, man.
Yeah. So I think like if you put this down, it blocks your opponent's Undermountain Adventurer, trades with some one of their removal spells, or it gets you some value from your other things dying because you're playing it next to cards that say sacrifice a creature. And that's why I like this card.
I do like this in the context of Aristocrats or in sacrificing creatures.
Yeah, maybe like green black mid range too, but yes. Yeah,
See, that's when you lose me.
All right.
If I'm playing this and I'm like cashing in, like playing Abzan Kratz or Jund Kratz or whatever,
Right.
then sure.
Okay.
But I'm not in it for the mid-range plan. I don't like the stat line. The fact that it doesn't trigger off itself, and that just like it's a goddamn spider with 3 toughness. Like you had 4 on
Why
the
isn't it
card.
a 2/5? Yeah.
Like it's basically being like, hey, you can bolt me.
Tax
you can
for
bolt
4,
me.
though. Tax for 4.
Everything
All right.
attacks for 4 right
so
now.
in 4-color
Everything
Kratz or
taxed for
3-color
4.
Abzan or Jund Kratz, now you're doubling up on your.
But that's the
sacrifice
thing
value.
is that I don't know if I want to play green in my Kratz deck now. Like Mardu to me seems like the most appealing. Jund could be pretty good because you end up getting, the accelerants and grist and whatnot. But like, yeah, I am more convinced by this card than I was initially. But also I am still not impressed with the, hey, I've played a 3-mana 4/3 reach, like I feel like nobody talks about Llanowar Green Widow.
They were playing it for a little while though. Like I've seen Llanowar Green Widow in Black Mold.
All right.
If you said Gruul, I might be convinced. But Black,
I kind of like it in medium Gruul just because it's like easy to cast off an Ancient Tomb or a Red Mox.
medium Gruul.
yeah, it's like Gruul monsters.
Gruul
Sure,
monsters.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, the last card we're going to talk about, huge surprise, no one could have seen this coming. Satina, Speaker of the Tajuru. This is a legendary 3-mana 2/2 elf scout for 2 and a green from the Jumpstart product. I'm like, I'm not going to screw it up. I'm not going to screw it up. Screws it up.
You can just not say it. You can just say from Jumpstart.
Jumpstart. When Satina enters, search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Whenever Satina attacks, you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
Okay.
Wow.
Would you like to? Do you want? I mean, okay.
Wheeler needs to like get up and go do a dance.
Okay. It wasn't enough. It's your.
How long can we wait?
No. I'll take the next one. You go.
Okay.
But
Okay. Yeah, you can talk Alesha.
yeah.
Okay.
Like the spoiler.
Okay. She's. Spin her of souls.
Shut up.
Okay. So it's a Farhaven elf. Except
what's-
it's a 2/2.
It's a wood elves.
Yeah. Finds the basic into play tapped. Great. That's fine. It does get Karakas. Who cares?
Hell yeah.
I just get to
Another
rant more.
land. Yeah.
I might be
Every
Karakasing
turn.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That second ability,
Yeah.
being a May is great. You don't always have to commit to it. So even if you are like a deck that cares about hitting land drops and having extra mana, which a lot of Green X land decks do, you don't necessarily need to pop it back into your hand if you want to cast a big thing, which is great. I being able to put the counter anywhere, also great. I just want to play this with Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah.
The fact that this finds a basic land, which means it can find basic island, to then Time Walk, Mystic Sanctuary, put Time Walk back on top, attack, return the Mystic Sanctuary to my hand, put it in play, and just.
Well, this resets so much. This resets Caracas.
Mm-hmm.
This resets Academy.
Mm-hmm.
This resets Cradle.
Mm-hmm.
This resets Urza Saga? I don't know.
I mean, you could, right?
Right.
You could be like, all right, make a token, attack, bring back the Saga, do it again. It's slow, but who cares? You just get to do it again.
Odd. I think it's a play pattern that a lot of people don't appreciate how strong it is until maybe the first times you sit across from a really well practiced Elves player. The power and flexibility that returning a land to your hand can play. And I'm not talking about like the commander bounce lands or whatever, but like no. Float a mana, bounce a thing, untap a creature, do this. Like you can do some really busted stuff. This, mind you, is a little bit more clunky because you're attacking, so you don't get to do the float a mana trick. But it's very powerful. It's stronger than it looks. I'm trying to think of a good word.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very unassuming.
Yeah.
But even like returning, I just had a land with an ETB in my mind. That wasn't Mystic Sanctuary.
You mentioned Sajiri Step when we were talking about the last lands
Yeah,
cards,
sure.
and like, are we just going to be jamming Teetering Peaks again in 2025? There's like we got the Time Walk Mystic Sanctuary deck, and then on the other side, there's like all these landfall aggro creatures.
I mean, we're all missing the most obvious land style land with an ETB that has just taken over our format. Is like even just returning Surveil lands.
Sure,
it's pretty huge.
Yeah.
Returning the double face modal cards.
That's
pretty huge.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't. If you told me that the cards I'd be most excited about for the set review were Jumpstart uncommons with anime art, like I would be like, no, you're lying, dude. There's like an egg in here or something.
Explains a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Foundation's Jumpstart's a hell of a set.
Yeah, I like this card.
Me too.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the new Alesha, and then Nelson... No spoilers, no. All right, back to Serge. We're at our gold cards here. Alesha, who laughs at fate, is a 3-mana 2/2 legendary human warrior for 1, a black, and a red. She has First Strike. Whenever she attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on her, and Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, return another target creature with mana value less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to your hand. Wow. I love this card.
To the battlefield.
To the battlefield. Thank you, James. I love this card even more. Sorry, I knew what this card did. I just used the wrong words. So thank you for that. Now, important to note, for this raid, Alesha doesn't have to attack. Any creature you play can attack. And we were talking earlier about the potential identity of a Rakdos deck. And so played alongside cards like Inti, where you can set up your own play by discarding cards and then bring them back with Alesha and stuff like that is unbelievably powerful. And I don't know, she slices, she dices, she's a human warrior, as we're saying. There's a lot of vulnerability. This is a legendary 2/2. It dies to a stiff breeze, but on the plus side, it has a lot of upside and generates card advantage, which is something that I sometimes worry a little bit with in the red-black deck. Even like you have card velocity, but not necessarily card advantage, and this can sort of tip that.
I like that it kind of gets around at least the first Caracas activation too, because you could be, well, I guess if they have Caracas untapped, they'll get you still, but
I mean, if you play this into Caracas untapped, I think that's on you.
Yeah. But like, say they have a Caracas, but you haven't played a legendary yet, and they tapped it already.
Yeah.
Then like maybe you get one turn of like, okay, I'm playing this, and we're actually going to be on parity for mana. You're going to tap your Caracas, and I'm going to get back a 2/2 or a 2
mana
drop
each or something like that.
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
Sure. All right, so let's go to
Is it my
Nelly
turn
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about Anthem of Champions. It costs a green and a white. It's an enchantment, and it says creatures you control get +1/+1. Yay, new like landmark kind of best version of this effect we've ever seen. I really like that they called it an anthem because that's already like
That's what it is.
That's
Yeah.
the first. That was the first card that we had that did this that we kind of glommed around. It wasn't the very first card that ever did this, but it is a card that was like the simplest version
yeah.
of this.
Well played, Nelson. I'll pull my glasses off my nose.
Thank you. Yeah. There's earlier versions of all your creatures or creatures of a specific variety get a bonus, but Glorious Anthem is the one that appeared in a core set with like kind of the simplest line of text. I think it's exactly the same text box that this one has. It just costs 1 white, and then we had a green planar shifted version of that was also had the word anthem in its name.
Gaia's Anthem.
And so now we're seeing a marriage of the two colors, and it only costs 2 mana. So great get for token strategies. Anthems, we don't see a ton of use.
Yeah, they're kind of in a weird place. I was thinking about
They're
this.
just
Canadian
so
Highlander?
they're
Yeah.
so good, but you never want to include them in your
Yeah,
deck.
you're
Right.
excited if it's attached to a creature
Yeah.
or a planeswalker.
Yeah.
But it's or an impact tremors.
Right. So now we've got one that is a permanent that only costs 2 mana. So something we could see like getting discarded to a faithful suiting and brought back with like
Pitch to your solitude
You know?
and or endurance.
exactly. Like we could see it, coming back off the various cards that do that. But yeah, mostly I see this next to cards that make tokens.
I could see this in Sanctum Stompy.
I was
Like,
thinking
it's just
about
cheap.
that to myself.
It's
It is
super
cheap. It is an enchantment.
Gives your enchantresses at least 1 power.
It is cheap and it is an
It's
enchantment.
a cheap
I did
enchantment
say
in
that.
both your colors that buffs your board in some way, shape, form. And it's new. It's got to be better than some of the other crap. I like this deck, but come on, Hopeful Eidolon.
Hey, that has lifelink.
Yeah, but
It costs
it's
4.
it's a creature.
Yeah, we just.
Yeah, I know.
It's so bad I mispronounced Eidolon.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Ilanda, Saint of Dusk. This is a 4-mana 4/4 legendary vampire knight for 2, a white and a black. Lifelink and hexproof from instants. As long as your life total is greater than your starting life, Ilanda gets +1/+1 and has menace. Ilanda gets an additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting life total. I mean, it's just a big dumb vampire finisher and a payload off.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Please
Did
don't.
I say that wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't say that again.
No. Okay. To life gain strategies. It's expensive, but it does have some protection. The hexproof from instants at least blanks some of the stuff that'll kill it.
If only
don't know.
Caracas was an instant.
Yeah, I'm not too excited about this because it's unless you're a vampire enjoyer, it's not going to be too much, but it's going to be very big. In that deck, it will end games very quickly.
Yeah, I'll die to this card and I'll be like, I can't believe they're playing this card.
Yeah.
I mean, hexproof from instants, like most of the good removal is an instant.
Yeah.
So like that's not nothing. 4/4 legend.
That is a scary line of text.
Yeah.
It does get
Menace.
dealt with by planeswalkers pretty easily, which
Yeah.
is kind of funny.
Oko. It's like
And like other creatures too is more. Like,
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm worried about.
it's not really ahead of the curve, right? Like you look at this versus Questing Beast, and you're like,
The
you got to have a lot of synergy
What-
to make this one good.
Yeah, I would have killed for this in 2018 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there would have been a moment for this to shine. The problem is these days, like what this offers you, you can just get for less mana.
You only get so many 4-drops in your deck, especially in an Orzhov deck. And just like it's hard to play this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of 4-drops in Orzhov,
What a segue.
but this one I will play. Don't worry. Fiendish Panda.
Why is it so good?
2 white and a black for a 3/2 bear demon with whatever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. I'm not into that. I don't care about that.
Yeah, no, that doesn't matter to you at all, hey?
No, the second part is where I'm at. When this creature dies, return another target non-bear creature card with mana value less than or equal to this creature's power from your graveyard to play. So let's talk about Safi Eric's Daughter.
All right.
Safi Eric's Daughter is a 2-mana 2/2 legend that has Sacrifice Safi. When target creature is put into the graveyard from play this turn, return it to play. This combos with this panda. Safi combos with the panda.
Sure does.
Safi also combos with Renegade Rallier. Safi also combos with Loyal Retainers. The 3-mana 1/1
Right,
sack it
Safi's legendary.
to return a legend from your graveyard to play. There is redundancy in your combo deck involving Safi Eriksdotter. I like that a lot. This is a deck that I've played before as kind of like a splinter from the more traditional Sandra Bullock Pattern Rector style decks. And I kind of want to see it make a comeback, especially because it can play Blood Artists. Like, that can be your way of killing.
Sure.
Like, you get infinite sacks and infinite ETBs or death triggers. What are you doing with it? Kind of ties into that white card we talked about, the like raise the
Right.
ranks, I think is what it was called.
New Rally
The-
Ancestors, yeah.
Yeah, the new Rally the Ancestor style card, where like, yeah, you just want to play a bunch of garbage that if it dies, but also if you bring them all back, you get a bunch of triggers or death triggers. And the panda just fits nicely on the curve of like, yep, I can Eldritch Evolution into this and combo kill them.
I'm curious. James, can you bring up Body Launderer from New Capenna?
Oh yeah, 2 black for a
Yeah,
3/3
is that-
ogre rogue.
Does that do the same thing or slightly different? Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Connive. When it dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power, not mana. Wait,
It'll
sorry.
work though because
Yeah.
Safi also
Safi
is
has a 2/2.
Yeah.
This card can fit into that. I guess one of my concerns is that Connive is
It's not a May.
not a May. So it's very
If you're
unlike.
going infinite, you're in a bit of trouble there.
Yeah, you might deck yourself before you kill them, which
Sure.
sounds goofy to say. That might not pop up too. You could probably sculpt scenarios where that
Typically in our format, you have more cards in your library than your opponent has life points.
doesn't. Yeah, but what
You have
I
to
mean
hit
is you
it,
need
yeah.
to like dig for the
Yeah.
piece
Yeah.
and then get there.
It's funny because this one has been a little pet card of mine in recurring nightmare decks for a while. I've been cutting it recently, but I was like, oh yeah, the value.
Right.
There you go, redundancy.
Yeah. Is there a Turbo Initiative version of like that Safi loop that people have tried yet or no?
Turbo Initiative.
You could.
Because you just like dome them for 5 if you go through it every time, and you get the dig every time you loop. Like, does that work?
You would need to, well, not to side tangent too much, but Pattern Rector, if you're playing a version of Pattern Rector that isn't on the Cauldron Familiar, like Samwise plan, which, why aren't you doing that?
Sure.
But if you're not, one of the ways, like, and you want to be more of a mid-range shell, you can combo loop with an initiative creature, where you just continuously go through the dungeon and trap them to death.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nelly, take us home with the gold cards.
Last gold card we're going to talk about today is Coma World Eater.
Big.
3 green, blue, 7 mana for a legendary 8/12 serpent with this can't be countered, trample, ward 4, and whenever Coma deals combat damage to a player, create 4 3/3 blue serpent creature tokens named Coma's Coil. All right. So maybe not like the absolute best reanimator target, but you could include it in that spread as well if what you're looking for is ward 4. It's tied on ward with Kappa Cannoneer. But probably where you're really looking for this card is taking advantage of the can't be countered clause as an option for your big Bant control finishers that matter in the control mirror. It's hard to target. It can't be hit by counter spells, which is super relevant in the matches where it matters at all. And then if you can get in with it once, you pretty much won the game. It's 8 power trample, so that might be enough on its own, but you're going to have 12 more power spread across 4 bodies. I will say versus previous Coma, you can't then also like use it to play defense other than just like sitting back and blocking with your 8/12 the first turn or blocking with your other creatures that you get in the future. Previous Coma, if you were heading for that one as a finisher, would allow you to like tap down their stuff on their turn and not get attacked. But this one is also good.
So big.
It's big, yeah. It's an 8/12.
I could see somebody natural ordering into this.
Sure.
It is green.
Atraxa's cool.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
Atraxa as the like. It's not Cradle
The
of.
de facto target lately.
It is
Yeah.
a green card, but I mean Atraxa doesn't have ward.
Yeah.
So if like if your bonus cards don't matter, if the board is what matters, and you need to like natural order into something that they have to pay 5 mana to Caracas.
Atraxa's really appealing in concept for these natural order decks because you're like, well, I get the 7/7 and I draw a million cards. And then in practice, it's like, well, I lost the creature. I used my natural order. Now I'm up a creature. And then I draw like two
maybe
to
3
4
cards,
cards.
yeah.
Whatever.
Maybe 4
Like
cards.
it's good. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But then like Atraxa's not the hardest thing in the world to deal with. I mean, anecdotally, I remember somebody getting Atraxa into play every turn for like 4 turns in a row. And I just kept Caracasing it and just attacking them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of gated by my mana. If I was a coma, I wouldn't be able to do anything.
Right.
Right? It's kind of worth looking at.
I was playing Rachel Weeks, and we both had natural order into Atraxa in both of our decks. And I did my Atraxa, and I got like the worst. I got like, a fetch land and an elf.
Sure.
And then she hit 6 creature types, or like 6 different
Sure,
card
different
types, and
cards,
just
yeah.
like, well, how do I hold all of these answers? Like, we are not the same.
Over-
Come on.
Overlord of the Balemerc has Atraxa decks eaten nice. They're just like, ooh, an enchantment. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah, and just like, how?
All right, Serge.
Yeah, colorless. Let's talk about the Sire of 7 Deaths. This is a 7-mana Eldrazi, 7/7. And if you didn't know, it has 7 keywords. First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, Ward, pay 7 life, which is very cool. Now, as far as Eldrazi, like this one's cool. Don't get me wrong. This is undoubtedly cool. It's so flavorful. It does so much. I like my Eldrazi to have an ETB or a cast trigger or an annihilator or something like that. I think I don't want to channel into this. I don't want to reanimate into this. You could do both and it would be fine. I just like my Eldrazi a little bit bigger.
Counterpoint. We just cast it.
Yeah.
I think Eldrazi is like one of the most underexplored things that we can do in our format. Where, like, think how broken Ancient Tomb is.
Yeah.
By playing Eldrazi, we end up getting like 3 more Ancient Tombs in our deck.
Well, I remember you had a mono green list that was actually it was closer to mono colorless, right? Because there's
The Green Machine?
There's from World Wake. No, what was the one that introduced colorless mana? What set was that?
Oath of the Game.
Oath, right? Oath had a lot of very interesting, like cheaper Eldrazi ones that required colorless mana, and then also had, just kind of explored the whole thing, like colored Eldrazi with the Devoid mechanic as well.
Yeah. I mean, Modern Horizons 3 also introduced some of the most broken Eldrazi that kind of fit into that kind of line as well. It's just something that hasn't been explored outside of like, what if we made the biggest idiot in the world?
Sure.
Instead of just being like, what if we played this 7-mana creature on turn 4?
Just
Like,
mono green, and you probably also have channel, but you're expecting to like fair cast some of these.
You could be, you could be mono green. You could probably be like a green base, but with other colors because you just want to play, like, you probably want to get red in there. So you could play the Line Breaker, one of the MH3 ones.
I do love that card.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just enough of these that it's worth looking into because, I mean, these cards are just killing everything else everywhere. So
I did some experimenting this year with mono green Eldrazi as well, trying to hit like that sort of after MH3. It's kind of like the fax machine curve that goes all the way to 10 and then also tightens or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like it does have channel, and then it's like trying to decide whether you want to play Eureka or just give that to another one.
Oh,
Sort of
yeah.
kind of spots, like whether you want to go that way. And yeah, this card, it's just in an interesting position where it's like you could channel into it. You wouldn't feel terrible about that line of play because at least
your
you're
lifelink.
Yeah, it has the lifelink, and if your opponent kills it, they had to pay as much life as you did to channel it.
A card and a life. Yeah.
You know, so you're feeling okay about that, but also if your deck's set up for it, maybe just cast it on turn 4 or 5.
Wheeler, take us home. Last card.
it's a land. It's called Soulstone Sanctuary. It taps for a colorless and then has pay 4 generic. This land becomes a 3/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types. it's still a land. Notably, it's not until end of turn. Kiss your stocking stones goodbye.
Oh shit. Sorry. I did the thing where I read this card and I was like, I don't know. Sure, vigilance is nice, but I don't want to pay 4 every turn for a Mutavault.
Yeah, it's just forever.
Stocking stones for 4.
Yeah.
And has vigilance.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm suddenly okay with this card.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it becomes a human.
You could, it becomes a goblin.
And a coward.
A goblin.
An
Yeah,
elf that gets a +1/+1 counter when it taps.
Yeah.
Delightful.
I think it's worth for Typal decks to explore this, or decks that have some excess mana lying around. Creature lands are in a weird spot where when you're building your deck, like you're building your D&T deck or whatever, or even goblins, you're like, I don't really want to play Mutavault and Mishra's Factory, do I? And then you fight against someone that's just like, oh yeah, I'm playing this deck. Of course I'm playing these creature lands.
Yeah.
And you die.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, right.
Or you're playing against a control deck, and you're like, God, I just wish I had a creature land so I can get around those stupid counter spells.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe this just fits that role. I think permanently becoming the creature, vigilance, and having those creature types really appealing. And then the stuff that applies to basically all these creature lands where they dodge like abrupt decay style effects. They are just kind of annoying to deal with, like prismatic ending can't muck it.
Yeah, it turns out that it's still a land actually.
Oh no,
protected from a
prismatic
lot.
ending can muck it. Wait, no, it can't.
Because you say non-land or not?
No, because you have to. It doesn't say non-land, but it
Doesn't say
says
less,
yeah, for all the colors you put into it, and you have to put in 1 white mana no matter what.
Okay.
But is it or less? God,
Anyways,
Can
they
you bring
dodge,
up prismatic
land
ending?
creatures
When is-
dodge a bunch of
When's the
removal.
last time I played?
I think it's or less.
I
think you can
played
hit
this
zeros
card
with
like
prismatic.
yesterday.
I thought you could hit Moxen with prismatic.
You
James, do you
can,
mind
yeah,
bringing up prismatic
never
ending
mind.
just for
never mind,
everyone's
never mind. No, we're good. We don't need to shame me anymore for.
We're
No, no,
not.
no,
I
this
can't
is-
remember
this
what it
is-
says either. We're not
This is
shaming
an
you.
important
It
moment
is
for
or
Nelly and
less.
I.
Only you are
No, it's
shaming
or
you.
He
less.
can.
It's or
He can
less.
be wrong. He can miss.
You get hit
He's
the
human.
Moxen.
He's human.
That's it. I'm streaming Minecraft.
It's not like you.
full-time.
It's not like you lost a die roll just now or anything.
Well, I'd never lose a die.
All right.
Noticed.
Now, my friends, let's talk about our closing thoughts of this set. And I'll go first because I only have one thing that I want to add. And that is that I really, really, really like Foundations. This set is hitting, like, look, Bloomborough was great. It was cute. There were fuzzy animals. We like the vibe of it, stuff like that. Duskmourn, you're like, I don't know if I like the horror aesthetic. This is the most magic-feeling magic set that I've experienced in a very, very, very long time. And at first, I was like, oh, this is only going to be a set of reprints, and that's okay because it's going to be an important foundation for like Standard and for people getting into it. And then we have done 90-minute episodes. We talked about this set for 3 hours and some absolute bangers that have been added to this as well. This set is great. It makes me very happy, and it soothes my old Magic boomer heart, Nelly.
Yeah, let's double some +1/+1 counters on our
Oh,
creatures.
yeah.
Absolutely. And cowards can never block warriors.
Famous card? What's your favorite card?
Yeah, I think my favorite card. I think the card I'm probably going to play the most out of this set is Scythecat Cub.
Yep.
Scythecat Club.
Scythe.
I want to
Cat
hang out at the
Cub.
Scythecat Club, please.
Mm.
Joe Exotic will be there. Anyways, yeah, some great new green and white +1/+1 counters cards, and zombies getting a few includes is great. Another Blood Artist.
Oh god, aristocrats. Let's go.
There were several cards during these last 2 podcasts that we didn't talk about for very much because they're just like straightforward include buff cards, and then a few cards that were pretty interesting. And yeah, I agree. It does feel like a magic set, so that's cool.
The biggest winners from this set are goblins +1/+1 counters, Rakdos midrange,
Yeah.
and
Coming to a Friday Night Paper fight, red, white, heroic.
Absolutely. Heroic and aristocrats.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's a pretty healthy spread of decks to get some legitimate upgrades, right? Yeah, this set is a banger. It's a TTBB, a top to bottom banger. There's some cool combo cards in there. There's some niche kind of like archetype cards. There are some decision points. That's all I want from Magic the Gathering is I want my decisions to feel like they matter, right? And some of the sets that we've had this year, my decision doesn't matter unless that decision is, do I include Emperor of Bones in my black deck, or am I an idiot? You know? Like, I don't want to always be in that world. I want to be in the world where I'm like, am I going to play the, like, Dionysus in my elf deck? Probably, but there's a conversation to have about it being a 4-mana 3/3 legend without an ETB, right? Sure. That's an interesting thing to work through. Or Satina, like, am I really playing this juiced up Farhaven elf in my, like, Scape Shift extra turns deck? Like,
I mean, you could
or
say,
lands
hey,
deck?
I'm an aggro deck, and my Mossborn Hydra doesn't work because after 3, I'm only going to make 1 more land drop. I don't know.
And while you're saying that, there might be somebody else in some different country that has had that exact same conversation but came to a different conclusion. Yep. And that is dope. We don't get that a lot. We don't get that on this level that is like just blanket appealing to Magic players as well. Not even speaking like aesthetically, just the way the card, they're like simple, elegant, but we can talk about them for 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's great.
What's your favorite card?
It's got to be a toss-up between Avora, the blood one.
The red vampire?
Yeah, Satina, because, I mean, I love a Borderland Ranger, and I love a Farhaven Elf. And I kind of like... I really like that giant. Like big,
the
5-mana giant.
The
Yeah, Mage of Runes. I like that giant.
I'm looking forward to maybe changing my mind on that one.
Yeah.
If I didn't say my favorite card, it might actually be Frontline Heroism.
Sure. There you go.
It might be. We'll see. That's just my kind of garbage.
Yeah.
Or that white enchantment creature for Stankum Stomping.
Oh, the Eidolon. Yeah.
The Eidolon. The Eidolan's pretty pushed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sorry, will it continue?
No, that's all I got. The set is like even Plagon. I've been thinking about that stupid starfish for this entire episode because I'm like, did the CDH players know something that we
What do they know?
You know, there's a green mythic from Bloomborough this year that also cares about creatures having more toughness than their power. It's like a 5-drop, and maybe
the Australian turtle.
Australian turtle.
Wait,
yeah.
5-drop?
Up the
beanstalk? Oh
Right?
my god!
It is a 5-drop that cares about lands.
Some sort of Bant Doran deck with walls. I don't know.
All right, friends, that is going to do it for our Foundation set review. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed it. As always, if there's any cards that you think we missed or that you want to talk about, hit us up in the comments down below. While you're down there, hopefully, as you're watching this episode, we ticked over the tremendous milestone that was 100,000 subs on this channel. I never want to bring this up again. We're so close. Please push us up over that limit.
Thank you.
What an incredible milestone. Reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you with your support over the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. I've been Serge, joined by Nelly.
I was here.
Wheeler.
Dations.
Shout out to James on tech.
No, I'm not going to do again.
My man. We appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.